Hello amateur film fans, welcome to B Movie Dreamer. I'm your host Paul. I appreciate you coming back. This is episode 6. I have a bunch of things to talk to you about today. First off, let's start with the script. As you know, we're making Space Spider, and I'm in a very bogged down part of the film. As I told you in the last episode, it's still in the middle of the script. The script is it's growing, and it has a way of doing that with me. I told you before I have to make up the story, make up all the characters, show you what they're doing, write down what they're doing, write the camera angles, all that kind of stuff, and you know that. And so I just wanted to tell you that it is growing. Originally I started with 3 characters and maybe a couple of small little characters here and there. Now I have 13 characters, but that does include the smaller parts as well. And the good news is that most of them are cast, even though we are a long way off from starting the filmmaking process. I really want to get this script done. It's best to work with a script that is finished. Then you know exactly what you want to do. So I just kind of wanted to give you an update on that. Well, moving along, over the past 5 episodes, from time to time and in different ways, I have given you some, we'll call them movie memories from the first 2 films that we did. We had The Depths of Destruction and we had Die Snapper Die. And I'm telling you this because my biggest thing was that I'm still, so involved with the script. There's just not a lot to show you or tell you, like the earlier episodes when I was working on the blue screen. One way I was just talking to you about memories that came up on occasion. Then the second way, we had Luna, who is the robot head that will be attached to one of the characters' cockpit. She's kind of on the dash, kind of helping out. She is like the computer basically, but she has a voice and she, it lights up. I'm sure if you've been following it, you've seen her eyes light up, and when she talks, her mouth lights up. And anyway, so she was asking me questions also about some past experiences, and we would go off and on from that. And then the last time she was in the shop, so I got from the people who write in questions or contact me, they ask about several things. And so what I did was I wrote them down on pieces of paper, if you remember, and I put them in envelopes, and I called it Liffey TV. And I brought some notes here with me today because there's just so much packed into this sequence that I would just never remember to be able to say everything that I wanted to get across. And if you remember the Liffey, that was letters from you, the viewer. And I was opening them up, and I was just basically reading them out loud and then trying to do my best to answer them. So next episode, this is episode 6, and episode 7, again, when I talk about a memory from the past, and hopefully these memories encourage you to do things a different way, perhaps, or figure out different ways to do it from, even from that. And so what I'm going to do is, next time we've invented a new segment, and we're calling that new segment from times of yesteryears, and we'll be talking about movie memories, at least from the only 2 films that we've made so far. And what we'll be doing is I'm going to have a special guest on, and I will try to do that as often as I can from the future. So I'm not just the only one, talking to you. We can get a little interaction, back and forth. So that will be next time. So I want to not leave you with a movie memory, but a fun one, and just to give you an idea of how long things take. I'm sure you know how long movies take to shoot. And again, just make sure you're still having fun with all this, because if you're not having fun, then I'm not sure there's a point. Um, but in our first film, Depths of Destruction, we had a creature, and the creature had a fin on its back. So technically, if it was in the water, it would be like a dorsal fin. So first of all, we had to make the dorsal fin, and we made that out of different plastic and some paper mache and some rod and a lot of sealant, things like that. And so we painted it. And this was simply a scene where we're going to see the surface of the water. And when no one's looking, except for you, the audience, there is part of the fin will come up out of the water and go immediately right back into the water. Just so you know that there's a creature of some sort in the water. There's no noise, it's very calm, and it's about 3 seconds of film. So you think, well, that's not too bad. You make the fin, and you go out, and bang, 3 seconds. Well, that's wrong. We had to pick a location and area to do this, and so it took us a half an hour to get there, a few minutes to set up, and we brought with us a person who was a scuba diver, and we got the equipment, and the person went in the water, the fin went in the water, and it took us an hour just in the water to get our 3 seconds of film. So you had taken all that stuff back out and driving back, so 2.5, 3 hours or so, we got our 3 seconds of film. But it was a good shot, and sometimes that's what happens. So that's what's going to lead me into the next segment. So I did, like I said, I have some notes because there's just so much packed in here. So I want to talk about money. Now, one of my slogans has always been, you've heard of low budget. Well, we do no budget. And I have explained to you also before that even though I say there's no budget, well, it's got to cost you something. There's going to be times where you're going to need a prop, or you're going to need material to make a prop. There's just different things that you're going to need some money for. So we scrimp, and we save, and it's not a lot of money we're talking about here. But of course, one of the advantages, as you may know, of making something with no money or very little is that you have to be very creative. It forces you to do that, and sometimes you get really fortunate with that, and something turns out even better than you thought it would. So with money, I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about major studio films. Now, some of you may know all these kinds of things, but it's expensive, okay? And give you an idea, let's see, I'm going to give you the idea of an average cost of a movie. So a regular studio movie, whether maybe it's a small drama, it takes place in present day, doesn't need a lot of fancy props, so it's not a period piece, or maybe even your typical comedy, that kind of thing. Well, according to my research, and I Googled a lot of this stuff and cross-referenced with a couple of other browsers, but it says that your average cost for the studio picture, if it's a regular film like that, it's approximately $65 million, okay, to do that. And then the unfortunate part, but it's the necessary part, is when you make an investment like that, a lot of times you really need to get the word out. So it costs almost another $35 million just to let people know about it, to make commercials, to make ads, all kinds of things like that. So now you're just talking about such an immense amount of money. Now, if you want to talk about low budget independent movies, well, anything approximately $2 million and under is considered a low budget. Anything more than that is really not considered a low budget. It still kind of is, but that's what they that's kind of like the rule there that they do with that. So I wrote down a couple things, and things have really changed over the years. So let's see, what did I write down here? I wrote down, I was giving you some ideas of what things cost. So back in the 90s when they did the Titanic, now that was one of the most expensive pictures up until that point. So most of your films you have, it's backed by a studio, and sometimes they have these minor studios, if I can say it that way, that might help them, like it might say Paramount, and then it might also say in association with Roadhouse Pictures, or it could be, it could be anything, White Dog Pictures. I'm just making these names up, but so they have a little bit of help too. But back in the 90s when the Titanic was being made, it was so much money. They were putting $200 million into that. And again, because we may know what things cost today, it may not seem like a lot, but in the 90s that was amazingly large. So they actually did two major studios to do that, plus a smaller little production company to help out with the cost. Of course, it was a huge hit, and they more than made up for that budget. But you're talking major dollars. So what you're talking about, what I'm doing here and what you may be doing out there, obviously, at least not here, we don't have that kind of money. We don't even dream about that kind of money. And also, to give you an idea, I was looking at Pixar. Now, when Pixar first started, let's see, my notes say here. Okay, so as composed to now, Pixar, the movies were not as much when they first started, and then of course they've become extremely high. So let's see, according to my notes, currently, in the last 10 years, that's current, each Pixar film costs between $175 to $200 million. And so it averages out to about $146 million if you go back further and you average the cost of those movies into this. So that's a lot of money. People say that they really tried to push CGI and different stuff that the computer does, and the computer does a lot of great things, but they try to tell you that it was cheaper to do than somebody building a set and moving things and recreating other things, but it's not always true. So here you have these basically cartoons, and of course they're computer animated, but they have to hire so many computer people that now their average price, again, if you average the last one, was 146 million, but now they're closer to 200 million a piece. And I had a couple examples of really high films. So to give you an idea, most of you are familiar with the Avengers Endgame. So the budget for that was $400 million. And Avatar, which was a little before then, but that was $425 million just to make. And whenever you hear a budget, that does not count the advertising. Okay, so, and when you commit so much to the advertising, to the budget, then you need to put a lot of money out for advertising too. Now, in both of those cases, Avengers Endgame and Avatar, well, Avatar is today the most biggest moneymaker film out there. So these things did pay off. These blockbusters did, they were blockbusters, okay? But I just wanted to talk to you about money. And if I check my notes here, I told you that to tell you this. So let's talk about Space Spider. Okay, now, at the moment, in general, I'm one guy. Yes, I'm going to have actors, friends and relatives who will do this for free, as I'm doing it for free technically, although I'm putting in money here and there. I have to, because I need something. So, and then of course, hopefully I'll have some cameramen and some other people who are helping out, and I appreciate that, and hopefully that will come. So to give you an idea, I'm gonna, and there's just too many to remember, so to memorize. I'm just gonna read you, give you an idea of the props, the locations, the vehicle, and food. Yes, I'm gonna include food. 4 things that just to make this film, Space Spider, a very amateur film, as I keep saying, these are some of the things that I'm going to need to either get, beg, borrow, not steal, but we're just going to have to come up with these things in one way or another. So we have cockpit seats, we have space helmets, we're going to have space attire and normal attire. Let's see, we're going to have cockpit interiors. You've already seen some of the outside of the ships, and of course we have Luna. She's mostly done, we're going to need weapons. We're going to need cardboard and wood for partial or full scale ship interiors or something on the outside. We might have to make it in full scale so it works with an actor. What else do I have down here? We're going to need radio sets, headsets. I'm going to need a giant egg. I'm going to need not only one spider, but I'm going to need more than one spider, because this spider, if you recall in this movie, it will continue to grow and get larger and larger. So that's going to be very interesting. I have blood down here. It's a spider, so we're going to need webbing. And then as far as location goes, most of this picture will take place in the woods. So I will try to find the best location that I can, and I'll get permission in the sense that I will be able to do this without bothering anybody, and vice versa. So there's that. I'm going to say forest. There is a difference, and we could need both. But so we have that, and whatever else the outdoors take. We're going to need to figure out how to make a representation, even though it's not a big scene, of the ground. Make it look like you're on the moon's surface, perhaps. So there's a lot of things that come into play like that, and we're also going to specifically need a Jeep, and that's just simply because I wrote it into the picture, and it goes well with some of the countryside that may have to be traveled. Let's see. Oh, not to mention, we're going to need tents. There would be fires, and it would be controlled fires. There would be a cabin, and of course, like I said before, the miniature work, which a lot of that's finished, but we may need to make some more. Let's see, what else do I have? Basically any practical effect that I need to come up with, and also our blue screen, which I mentioned before. And finally, we'll get to shoot the actors. Now, here's something that people don't think of. So if I go out and shoot a scene, let's say we have a bunch of scenes we need to shoot with a bunch of actors, and it's going to take 6 hours. It might take 8 hours. It might take more. We've done as much as 12-hour days before. So the one thing that I have to think of, and again, you have to reach into your pocket for this. You have to feed everybody. Some people need something to eat. They need something to drink. You need to be able to provide amenities for the actors. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. It's just all part of it. So again, when we say you heard a low budget, but we do no budget, it's true to a sense if you compare it to what a major studio does. So that was just a little touch of reality. Okay. So yeah. So let's move on to the next thing. Okay. Well, with that segment on the money, I didn't want to depress you. Hopefully that didn't steer you away. But these are just things that you have to really think about. So if that was even a slightly negative comment or thought, I want to leave you with a positive thought. And there's two things that I was thinking of. My wife and I had just watched some kind of film. I'm not even sure what it was. I just can't remember right now. There's been so many things going on. And whatever it was, and my wife doesn't usually make comments, but it was just ridiculous. The scene that was being shown was just so bad and just so utterly ridiculous. And I don't like to criticize movies because, like, I know what I make, but it was really, really bad. And I turned to her and I said, now see, these are the kind of movies, these are the kind of films, these are the kind of scenes that give me hope to continue to work on my movies. Okay, so you always want to keep that in mind. Now, the other thing I wanted to say on a positive note, and this is sort of like an encouraging thing. So, two directors. Number one, James Cameron, not only has been quoted, but he's actually in an interview when he says this, and he says that whether you made a film from a video camera, DLS or DSL, whether it's a professional camera, it doesn't really matter. He said, if you make a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end, even if it's something about the family, whatever it happens to be, regardless of how long or how short, James Cameron says that you can be proud to call yourself a filmmaker. And you know what, for people like us, I think that's terrific. Because most of us have we would have loved, again, to have been filmmakers, do it for a living. Some of you perhaps are, and that's great, and I'm a little jealous. And some of you, like myself, have not, or at least not yet. So it's a kind of neat little quote that James Cameron came up with, so we kind of like to keep that in mind, that, okay, we made this, and it may not be that great, but you know what? We're filmmakers, okay? And the other encouraging note comes from another director, and that's J.J. Abrams. And in an interview I saw him in recently, he was saying that he just loves making movies. He did as a kid. He did Super 8 as well, and then he graduated into the different other cameras, video and then real cameras, and then of course he was able to get into it. But he said that if the direction in his life hadn't taken him to be a professional movie maker, a professional director, a producer, he said even if he had a regular, we'll call it a blue-collar 9-to-5 job, he said it wouldn't have mattered because he would still make movies. And that's basically where I'm coming from, and I believe that's where a lot of other people are coming from too. It's just something that we feel like we want to do. We have a lot of fun with it, and like I always say, don't underestimate the fun part, because that's what it's really about for us. So just keep on going, doing what you can. Keep on doing what you can, and hopefully some of the things that I've said or shown on here will help out. And it helps me out too, just doing this. Like I told you before, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because if I tell you I'm going to do something about a new film, this film in particular, Space Spider, well then that pushes me to go ahead and continue to make the film instead of just hanging around, not feeling like doing it today, not feeling like doing it the next day, and then all of a sudden you're not doing it. So keep up the good work, keep your spirits high, and thank you for watching Be Movie Dreamer, and I will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.